Okay, so let's get started with this. Hey NEEMO friends, we're here down in Key Largo, Florida, doing the NEEMO 19 mission, and we're really thankful for you guys to join us for our first ever Google Hangout. I'm Wendy Watkins, and I'm from Johnson Space Center in Houston. I'm the NEEMO outreach person, the person that hopefully keeps you guys informed on social media. Since you're here, we know you must follow along on our social media accounts, but just in case you don't know, NASA is the NASA Extreme Environments Mission Operations, and like I said, it's our 19th mission. Before we get started, I want to remind you to send your questions now to the hashtag NEEMO19, that's NEEMO 1919. That's the number 19. So I'm topside at Mission Control, where the watch desk is, and the crew is about 5.4 nautical miles off the coast and about 62 feet below the surface in the Florida International University's undersea habitat. It's called Aquarius Reef Base. It's about the size of a school bus, so we have 6 crew members down there living and working together for about 7 days. And they are getting to know each other pretty well, for one, but they're doing a whole bunch of tests and engineering evaluations for us right now. NASA, the European Space Agency, and the Canadian Space Agency, and FIU have joined together for this mission to send our crew down to live and work in Aquarius, and they're doing what's called a saturation mission. And we send them down to the Aquarius and other extreme places to test in harsh space-like analogous environments to increase the reality of the high-fidelity tests. The tests that we do are specifically designed to inform future International Space Station and exploration activities, and many of the studies correlate directly to life aboard the space station, where the crews do perform critical tasks that have factors similar to those that are experienced in the undersea environment. So NEEMO 19 has some really great tests and evaluations that I hope you'll learn about during this hangout. But right now, I'd really like to get to the really important part, the crew, as you see on the screen. They'll be answering your questions today, and I'm going to go straight down to our commander, NASA astronaut and now Aquanaut, Randy Bresnick, and I'm going to ask him to get started with letting everyone give a brief introduction of who they are and what they are doing down there, so I can stop talking. Then we can get to your questions. So, to you, Randy.
All right, thanks, Wendy. Welcome, everybody, to Aquarius, 62 feet under the sea. Mission day 3 for us. We've conducted already our 5th spacewalk out of 9. Today was our first big exploration spacewalk, and we'll probably talk more about that later on. But we're getting well adjusted, going on about the, just over the 48-hour mark down here. And it's pretty amazing that even on the seafloor, 62 feet under the ocean, you can still feel in a 80-ton facility that Aquarius is, that's anchored down to the seafloor, you can still feel the power of waves move us back and forth and rocking us every once in a while. And that's something that I think surprised all of us, just how much power there is in that. We'll go ahead and let everybody introduce themselves. We've got Jeremy Hansen from the Canadian Space Agency, Hervé Stevenin from ESA, and Annie Mogensen from ESA as well, and also the world's first Danish astronaut. So, Jeremy, please tell us about yourself.
Sure. Randy said I'm from Canada. My background is Canadian Air Force, flew F-18s. I've been working for the Canadian Space Agency now for 5 years, training to fly in space. Still waiting for my first mission, which will come up in sometime in the near, not so distant future. And I guess the first thing I pass on to you from my experience down here is just how amazing it is when you live someplace for a little while. I mean, I've only been here 2 days, but already when I go out from the habitat and I'm on the ocean floor, it feels completely different than any time I visited the ocean on scuba tanks. I feel a little bit more like I belong here. I have a little bit more time to watch the ocean life, and it's just an incredible experience. Over to you, Hervé.
Hey, I'm Hervé Stevenin. I'm French. I work for the European Space Agency at the European Astronaut Center. My function is I'm the head of the EVA, NVA operations and EVA training unit over there, and I'm also a Eurocom space station. So I'm really amazed to be here, part of such a talented crew. and as Jeremy said, we feel like we belong to Aquarius. And Conrad mentioned the movement of Aquarius that we feel, but we could also feel change of pressure in the sea level. And this is a kind of regular pressure change that's normally. And I was thinking, like, yeah, it's a bit like this is a heartbeat of Aquarius that we feel directly from inside. So we definitely feel that we belong to it.
Excuse me, my name is Andy Mogensen. I'm from Denmark. I'm an astronaut with the European Space Agency. Originally, I'm an aerospace engineer. I became an astronaut 5 years ago and have been training since then. I was fortunate enough to participate in a NEEMO mission last year, so this is the second time I'm here, and it's great to be back. Unfortunately, I can pretty much guarantee I won't be here next year because I'll be in space at this time on my first mission to the International Space Station.
Wendy, how's that thing?
That's perfect. So I guess we could go ahead and get to some of the questions that we've gathered from Twitter and Google+, and we've yet to see any come in from Facebook. So if you guys are out there and you're on Facebook, remember to use the same hashtag. It's NEEMO19, and we've got people in the room here helping me gather them. So our first question comes from Alberta science teacher Amanda. I think Jeremy might have been in contact with her before. She says, one of my students wanted to know what is the biggest danger you face and or what will you do if you sprang a leak?
Yeah, the biggest danger we face is actually not the fish, but having to go to the surface because we're saturated down here with nitrogen. Our bodies have been absorbing more nitrogen into our blood and our tissue than we normally have at the surface. And if we try to go to the surface, those bubbles expand, like a balloon expands, and can cause us either severe pain or more acutely death. Can actually kill you. And so if we do have an emergency here in Aquarius, we have a fire, we have some sort of leak, a major leak, and we have to evacuate, it's going to get pretty serious for all of us together. We're going to be working real close as a team to try and get everyone outside the habitat. We have a whole bunch of different emergency plans, but one of them involves going outside and free-breathing some different gas in a little air bubble we have just beside the habitat. Let's say there was a fire in here and it's full of smoke. We go there, we free-breathe some gas while a rescue boat comes out, and when it gets here, we all go to the surface. We get in a small chamber on the boat, really small, and we'll be like this in there, holding on to each other. And then we get dragged into shore, and then we spend about another 16 hours in a chamber on shore getting back to surface pressure so that we can walk outside again and still be alive. So a very complex procedure to handle a very dangerous environment.
Thanks, Jeremy. Okay, so our next question is also from Twitter, and it just came in, and it's Allie Wheeler, and she says, hi, are the Aquanauts eating the same diet as you will in space, and what other simulations do you have on NEEMO 19? The Glitzkrieg from Twitter also asked what you guys were eating, and she wanted to know if it was seafood.
We have all kinds of food down here, But one thing that really helps is we actually, have a lot of freeze-dried stuff. Here's an example of a particular kind. We've got beef stroganoff with noodles, apple crisp for dessert, which is actually very similar to a lot of the food we have on space station, where it's freeze-dried, where, this weighs nothing, here on Earth, and so therefore it doesn't take much rocket fuel to get it up to orbit and going 17,500 miles an hour. So it's a lot easier to take this up and then put water into it once we get to space. We've got a hot water heater down here that we can put into our food and make it up fresh, but we also have regular off-the-shelf stuff, which is similar to space missions, where you can have, comfort food, things you like, there's Mark and everything showing the, some of our snacks. But it is very similar down here. in that you can't just go to the oven and heat something up, or go to a stove or a gas grill and make food of it. It has to be packaged. It has to be easily transportable. It necessarily has to be easily reconstitutable for the crew.
And we will not eat only this, because there is a surprise for the dinner tonight.
It was supposed to be a surprise, but we're going to ruin it now.
We have to ruin it since the crew tonight for the dinner, space food from the space station. That is eaten by the astronauts in the space station, and this food is provided by ESA and has been developed by France by a French cook. So we have a special dinner, French dinner, ISS-like, that is shared between us.
Well, there you go. Exactly like I said.
Awesome. That doesn't have to do with anyone's birthday coming up, perhaps.
No. Just for tomorrow.
Oh, okay. So the other part of that question was she wanted to know what other simulations that you're doing during NEEMO 19. So maybe some of the tests that you guys are doing.
Well, from a European perspective, NEEMO 19 is a really exciting mission because we're testing some of the technology that we've been developing and that I'll actually be using on the space station next year. And this is some mobile technology that involves smartphones, smart tablets, integrated with a heads-up display. We're trying to make the way we work on board the space station more effective and more efficient. Because as it is now, everything we do is procedure-based. And right now it's on laptops. But if we can integrate that with wearable technologies, then we can work in a heads-up, hands-free type of environment. On top of that, we try to integrate cameras and real-time communication so that we can be in contact with experts on the ground, the scientists on the ground in real time, so that they can follow along and they can come with suggestions and help as we're working. Because a lot of people, they think of astronauts as scientists, but in reality what we are is a glorified laboratory technician. We are really the extended hands of the scientists on Earth who propose the experiments and who are the real experts, and we're doing their work in space. So if we have contact to them on the ground while we're doing it, we can really improve the work that we do in space.
Great. Okay. So along those same lines, I'm going to go ahead and throw it to Hervé and ask him a little bit about the heads-up tests that you guys are doing, since you have a big part in that, and I know people are kind of curious when they see you wearing those glasses.
So this is exactly what Andreas mentioned. So this heads-up experiment, the objective is to test the prototyping of this mobile device and related software that can be used by an astronaut when he's hands busy performing an activity on board the space station. So each of the crew members will test it, and the configuration is we have a kind of heads-up display displaying the procedure where we can, via voice command, go through the different steps of the procedure, which prevent or avoid that we have to go back to the laptop where the procedure is displayed and to do some back and forth time translation to displays, and we can stay at the same location. In addition, we have this video conference capability where if we have any trouble, anything going not really okay, we can ask the specialists on the ground, and they can also watch us over our shoulders and follow what we are doing. So it's a new technology, new configuration. What ESA is aiming for, or aiming to, is to find solutions to improve even more the operation that we can do on board the space station, and contribute to that, of course. And this is why we test it here. And this prototyping and our recommendation will help to further develop the final version that will be really tested in space by Andreas. So what we are doing now is really for the improvement of the space station operation.
Great, thanks. So I got a good one here from Carmen Austin, who writes us through Google Plus and through Twitter. And her question is, what other space analog missions have you guys participated in, either together or individually, and how do they compare to NEEMO? And that one's really exciting because we know there's another analog going on right now that some of you guys have taken part in. But more importantly, she really wants to know which button down there summons Godzilla.
We haven't seen the Godzilla button yet, or either that or Mark or Havtech here. He's not shown it to us. I'm not sure if he doesn't trust us with it. Oh, maybe we want to start pushing buttons, though. They get a little ginchy when we start touching their equipment. Other analogs, great question, because we're always trying to find ways to get people comfortable or exposed to the same physical, types of challenges they'll be facing when they go to space. I mean, the number one thing is the fact that it is completely different than anything you've ever experienced. And so if you can do something here on Earth that's completely different, then that's something that gets you a little more excited, a little more stress, and you're able to see how you perform in that environment. Historically, over the years, we've used the National Outdoor Leadership School with many different places in Canyonlands, in the Wind River Range in Wyoming, kayaking, and sea kayaking, and things like that. We've also had NEEMO going now for 14 years. And the difference between, NOLS, you're out in the field and you're camping and you carry everything with you, and so that's a really great stressful analog as a physical challenge. But, if something goes wrong, you just stay put, you get on the sat phone, you call somebody, come pick you up. NEEMO's different because we're down 62 feet under the ocean, and you can't just go to the surface. I mean, the question earlier, we have to do a desaturation, decompression for 17 hours before we can go to the surface. So that's not an option. So you're definitely in a life-threatening situation if there's any issues down here. But also another analog that ESA started 3 years ago was the caves analog, where you're in the caves of the Sardinia, the island off of Italy, and you'll do training just like you do here at NEEMO for the first week, and then you actually spend a full week in the Sagrutha Cave Complex, where you start out in the base camp. It's 1.5 miles from the surface, and then you explore out actually the areas of the cave that have not been mapped before. So even on top of the brand new experience, you're actually going places and doing exploration tasks, so you have an element of excitement as well as the element of, hey, that's a big dark hole down there, and I need to make sure that I'm tethered on with my equipment and my climbing gear is adjusted properly so that I don't have any type of accident. So both between caves and NEEMO, you have phenomenal analogs with the fear of death is every part of your day. You got to take care of your equipment because your life depends on it. You got to bring your food in, bring your food out. You got to worry about working together in a close environment with your crew members, and when other people get stressed because this is a new environment for them, how do you get along? How do you respond? How do you work through problems? How do you make decisions? And the thing that NEEMO adds, that Caves doesn't, is that we have a mission control that's going here 24/7 that operates just like it would on the space station. They're sending us stuff. We're working on computers. We're going ahead and doing these experiments of heads up and just-in-time training that allow us to really have a more ISS-like environment here down under the ocean. So all great analogs, and so hopefully, Andy's been able to do NEEMO and Caves. Weed and myself have both done Caves and NEEMO, and from having had the opportunity to fly in space once on a shuttle mission, I can tell you both these analogs are phenomenal preparation for going up into space, so that it seems less foreign and less strange when you get there, and so they'll hopefully be a lot more effective as soon as you get up there.
Thanks, Randy. Okay, so we got a question through Google Plus from Sean Squire. He's a space tweep that we interact with a lot on Twitter. He says, have you felt any effects from the saturation? Is the gas mixture there different than at the surface to avoid oxygen toxicity or similar effects? So you might want to explain about the saturation diving that you guys are doing too.
Yeah, so mean, my first time here, I haven't noticed any real effects on my body, except for my crewmates have pointed out the fact that my voice has changed because the density of the air here is much more dense. We're about 3 times the pressure that we would be at sea level. And so the way the voice moves or the air moves over your vocal cords is different than it would be at sea level. So they've been making fun of me a little bit for that, so that's awesome.
Instead of Barry White, he sounds like Alvin.
Yeah.
But it hasn't changed his accent.
Yeah.
I still sound Canadian, so that's all good. It looks like it's still working. I thought it was frozen. Okay. The other thing we talked about down here while we were working on it today actually was just maintaining a breathable atmosphere for us. So one of the tasks we have to do regularly is remove the carbon dioxide from the air. We have a special chemical down here that we do that with. And so we change that regularly so that we can keep removing carbon dioxide, similar to what we have to do on space station to keep our atmosphere the same. But the composition down here is the same as it would be up on top. It's still 21% oxygen, plus or minus, maybe a little bit less, just a higher pressure.
Okay, great. I have to unmute every once in a while because I don't want you guys hearing me make funny noises. So this question, I have another one from the Alberta science teacher. Her students had several. And this one is, what is your oxygen source, your fresh water, and your food? You guys already talked about the food. She wanted to know if it is similar to the space station. So, anyone?
Yeah, well, so one way that we're a little bit different than the space station is that obviously we're much closer to Earth, so we're not completely cut off. We do have a life support buoy on the surface of the ocean, and we have umbilical cables, big thick cables going from that buoy down to us that supply us with electrical power, with communications, and with our atmospheric breathing supply. Now, we are self-sufficient in case that the cable should get cut. I mean, it's an environment where there are hurricanes, and there have been, I think, cases in the past where the life support buoy has been cut off. And so we do have like a battery supply, backup battery supply, and enough air to keep us alive in case the life support buoy should become disconnected from us. But for the most part, we get our supplies from the surface through this umbilical cable to the life support buoy.
Also, I think that FIU posted a photo of a cross-section of the cable that runs down from the life support buoy. If anybody wants to go check that out on Twitter. So let's go to, since we're talking about the habitat, we have a question here from Rasmus on Twitter, and he wants to know, how does the kitchen work down there? Is it like on orbit, or is it different?
Yeah, the kitchen is working a bit the same, but there are some slight differences. For example, we have a microwave oven, and we have some hot water distributed through like a kind of tap water. But the way where it works differently is, for example, when you want to flush the sink. To flush the sink, you have a kind of valve that you have to push, and actually this pipe is connected to the surface, and due to the difference of pressure, the water is directly sucked out back to the surface through this pipe. So we play on the difference of pressure between the pressure inside the habitat and the pressure at the surface, just to flush the water from the sink.
And that's actually an important point. You have to remember to close that valve again, because if you leave that valve open, all the air here will start going out through the sink, and the water will start coming up through the wet porch, and soon the habitat will be submerged. So you got to make sure after you flush the sink, you got to close that valve again.
I've also heard that it burps a big bubble of air every once in a while, and it's kind of interesting to be on the surface when that big bubble comes up. So this question comes from Google+, and Robert Copeland asks, Randy mentioned earlier in an interview that the mission would simulate the comms delay between Mars and Earth. How's that going? Were there adjustments in communications protocol needed to reduce issues caused by the delay?
And Robert, great question. It was our first day with com delay, 5 minutes each way, so 10 minutes overall. So we asked a question to Mission Control. We can expect an answer no earlier than 10 minutes later. And what that allowed us to do, our EVA team and everybody got together ahead of time. We said, how can we do this? And the method which we started practicing today on the EVA was, go to a work site, do a particular set of work, go to another work site, and as they look at the details or the questions for that first work site, we're working at the second one. So that by the time we finish at the second one, we can go back to the first one, and they'll be able to send us answers or instructions as to what to do at that first work site. So it worked out pretty well, and we're looking forward to executing another day of that tomorrow, realizing that the 10-minute com delay is really only about half the distance between here to Mars. If it was actual Martian com delay, it'd be about 20 minutes of a round-trip transmission. And so we're trying to find out at what level does com delay become really untenable. You can't expect to do real-time operations, and you really would just want to just give the crew their intent and their instructions for the day and expect them to just be autonomous and report back at the end of the day. Or can we find a spot where, hey, we can actually make this happen, just we plan our work such that we can, expect those type of delays and intercede the crew back. Because what we don't want to do is send a crew to Mars, Phobos, the Moon, anywhere else, and have them just sitting around waiting to get, an answer from Mission Control.
And just in case you were still unsure about how cool this place was, I don't know if you noticed while Randy was talking, but we had a feeding frenzy right outside the window. I don't know if you could see all the fish swimming by.
Because you guys are the human aquarium now, right? Okay, so Laura Austin on Google Plus has a question for Jeremy, and she wants to know, how does NEEMO 19 mission relate to your role as an astronaut?
Well, there's so many different ways. Maybe I'll just talk about two quick ones. But one thing that's really important, I talk to school groups a lot, and I mentioned this, and one of the most important aspects when you're picking astronauts to send on a mission to space, a long-duration mission, is how they work together as a team, their teamwork skills, how they treat other people. If you're going to lock 6 people in a tin can for 6 months, how they relate to one another, how honest they are with one another, how much they look out for the rest of their teammates is really, really important. And so these experiences are really important for us to learn a little bit about ourselves. Every one of these experiences, I learn a little bit about myself. I'm not perfect, and there's things I do, and I notice, that bothers him once in a while, and I'm like, okay, I could do a better job of that. And so these experiences are worthwhile. There's something else that I noticed on this mission that I think is useful. This is a completely new spaceship for us, this Aquarius habitat. Never been in it. You can't visit it or train on it before you come here. You get here, it's the first time you see it. And as I was coming into this habitat and I was being introduced and shown, touch this, do that, don't touch this, and this is the emergency this, and this is the emergency that, I was thinking, wow, this is what it's going to be like for me when I get to a new spacecraft or I get to the International Space Station. It's all going to be new. It's all going to be weird. And this is a really cool experience. And today, for example, I've been here 48 hours, and it's been really wavy on the ocean up until today. It kind of calmed down. And today I noticed that the air was bubbling out of the habitat at a very constant rate. It's a little bit louder and a little bit more constant. So I came back inside and I went to Mark and I asked him, hey, what's going on? Why is it like this? And it sounds different to me today than it was yesterday. And he said, well, it's completely normal. It's just a different day. It's not wavy. And so these are the types of things in an operational environment that you're getting used to a new place.
That's awesome. Okay, well, along the same lines as that, Rosie Johnson from Twitter asked kind of a general question that a lot of people would like to know. She's actually a planetary science PhD student, but she wants to be an astronaut. So she wants to know, what are the steps to becoming an astronaut?
Well, getting a PhD in planetary science is certainly a good start. There seems to be 4 kind of general areas that most astronauts have as their background. Either you're a professional pilot, either from the military or civilian world, or you are an engineer, or a scientist, or a medical doctor. Those are the four kind of general areas that you need to have as a background. But on top of that, there's a lot of other things you need. I think for me, in my opinion, one of the most important things is you need to have some kind of operational experience, and that's why a lot of astronauts do come from a military background, because, and that's because they have this this operational experience. But I think if you don't come from the military, I think if you're a scientist or engineer, it's important to somehow go out and find some way of getting this operational experience.
Yeah, it could be something as simple as backcountry camping, mountain climbing, volunteer firefighters. There's so many different ways to do it. You just need to find something you like to do that challenges you. It's great to be academic and study, but you have to get out there and do some things that push your limits a little bit, and where you have to make some decisions that affect your life, whether you live or die. Those are great experiences to have.
And kind of one of the main things that the really look for, whether it's ESA or Canada or anywhere else, is well-rounded people. You can't be, all you've ever wanted to do is just go into space and you have nothing else in your life outside of that. We've got professional, costume musicians. We've got people that, climb Mount Everest. We've got, medical doctors, people, one of the guys I flew with, had a PhD from MIT, and then he went to Harvard, became a medical doctor, became an oncologist. So just wide variety of interests and challenges, but people took that educational experience they had and put it to practice. And that's really what they're talking about with operations. Certainly, the last astronaut class they had a selection in 2013, a year ago, in the U.S., there were some 6,700 or 7,000 applicants, from which they took 8 people. And so you really want people that want to be part of a space program, that are not wanting to be astronauts just to fly in space, because you've got to realize that if you become an astronaut, your time flying in space is about this much as your time as an astronaut. You've got to want to be able to be part of the space program, just like the other, in the U.S., 80,000 people are, that either build the hardware, write the software, build the spaceships, fuel the spaceship, whatever you can think of. Every single one of those people has to do their job. For the astronauts to be able to do their job at the very end, at the point where it's actually in space. So, whether or not you become an astronaut or not, we still need really smart, dedicated, people that want to be part of our space program, because we need every single one of them to make it all work.
And maybe a relevant comment from, since we're down here in the Aquarius habitat, another important thing is, would 5 other people put up with living with me for a week under the water or in space?
Yeah, would they?
It's a little harder to vote people off the island down here. We won't worry about that.
Yeah, I'm waiting for you guys to come out with your buffs and your torches. Well, so can you tell us a little bit about the 2 other crew members that aren't on camera right now? Because they're very important, and I would like to share them with the world.
Hello.
Hey, guys.
The gentleman with the hat is Otter. He's only been down here since NEEMO was conceived. And I think there's some of these giant groupers that are about as old as he is.
Ow.
But he knows everything about NEEMO down here. Now, am I right? I heard like 210 days you spent down?
211 today. My accumulated time living in the habitat, and I did participate in NEEMO 1 all those many years ago, and a few other NEEMO missions between them. I think this may be my third or fourth NEEMO mission, but I was on NEEMO 1 also. It's been a great ride. It's been a true pleasure.
And we got our other expert, Ryan, here, who's about to become a lead HAP technician for Aquarius as well. He was out there running around doing the fare leading for our lines today. He was out there the whole time we were out there, and then some, making sure everything was cleaned up in a proper configuration so we could do our simulations of the spacewalk. So anything you'd like to say, Ryan?
I've been with the program for about 8 years. I started here as an intern for NEEMO 11, also an intern for NEEMO 12, and I've been here ever since. I'm coming up on around 90 days total inside Aquarius, and this is my 8th mission.
Your first NEEMO inside.
First NEEMO mission inside.
Yay. I didn't realize it was your first one inside. That's great. I was lucky enough to meet Ryan, my first NEEMO mission, which was 15, and he was the very first person I did an on-camera interview with. I always have to say that one because it was very nerve-wracking. Since I have you guys here, we have a question from someone on Google Plus named Goktug, and you're going to love it. He wants to know how hard it is for individuals with resources to construct their own do-it-yourself Aquarius habitat.
Well, it's harder than you may think. It's very expensive, but essentially this is just a big recompression chamber. Like you said earlier, it's about the size of a yellow school bus, but it's a steel cylinder that has to be rated at certain high pressures. And then having some of the most difficult parts of it is penetrators that penetrate through the hull of the habitat to bring electrical systems in and air plumbing, things like that. If you puncture or make man-made holes through the pressure shell, that's a source of leaks. So it has to be perfectly engineered so you can't have leaks around that. So the wiring that comes in through here, it's a big money business out there in the oceanographic world for making these kind of penetrators. So that's another big cost. And just the infrastructure itself inside is pretty expensive. But there are, believe it or not, there's a couple of do-it-yourselfers out there that do shallow water habitats. There's one in the Chesapeake Bay. I've read about a couple of these. So they're more really shallow water underwater habitats. So good luck with it, but be very, very careful because the ocean or lakes and water can be very unforgiving if it's done improperly. A great question.
It might be better to rent this one and rent these guys. They know what they're doing. You know, we were talking about emergency plans earlier, and these guys are the emergency plan. If anything really goes wrong down here, the other four of us are just going to be big eyes looking at them and waiting for them to tell us what to do so we don't mess it up.
Well, you know, now the next question has to be, what do you do during an emergency?
Well, it depends on the emergency and the type of real emergencies that we can have here. The most dangerous ones are flooding and more particularly fire, which can lead to contaminated air. Our air supply that we're breathing right now gets contaminated with carbon monoxide or CO2, carbon dioxide. That can be a real problem. But a fire itself, that can cause like fires in your house, we just can't run out the door. And if there is any kind of fire, it's going to give off those fumes. And anything we breathe in here, it's 2.5 times more toxic than it would be at the surface. So if we have contaminated air, as Ryan's demonstrating, we have these emergency breathing masks that we would go on that has a separate source of air than what we're breathing right now. So the biggest issues are that, and we trained for it when the first day that these jets came down. We have a session where we talk about the different training. They don't do the steps that Ryan and I will do, but they know that they're somewhat aware of the steps, especially the evacuation process to get on out of here if we have to. We have a safe haven outside of the habitat we can go to. The fire and flooding are the two biggest issues, but we know how to deal with either one of those, and we have an escape plan if we needed to, if we couldn't solve the problem ourselves.
Other dangers, while not specifically inside the habitat, but while the divers, the Aquanauts are out on the reef, we have a standby diver at the ready at all times during their EVAs. That way, if any of them experience any trouble, like they get trapped outside, they have a loss of air, or some other danger, marine life happens to keep them from being able to make their way safely back into the habitat, then we will be able to go out there and assist them.
That's if they hit the button that summons Godzilla, right? Okay, well, since we're talking about being outside of the habitat, we've got a question from Lost in Space on Twitter, and they want to know, do you simulate spacewalks on the NEEMO 19 mission? And maybe you want to tell them a little bit about the EVA tools that you guys are testing out there. Oh, thanks, guys. Thanks, sorry.
No problem. Thank you.
Yes, we have been simulating spacewalks. In fact, every day we have a spacewalk simulation or two that we do. And specifically, we're looking at two different things during this mission. One, we want to understand how we're going to take a core sample on another planetary body. So let's say we do get to an asteroid. How are we going to dig down 1 meter into the surface with some sort of surface drill and pull out a core so that we can really find out what the asteroid's made of? And we would apply this same technology on Mars, on the Moon, for example. And so we actually have this amazing drill that they put together, this underwater drill that we're using to simulate that process. And we're doing testing on, okay, are we able to do this in a weightless environment? Are we able to do this in a 1/3 G environment like we would have on Mars? And so we're doing that on these spacewalks. The other thing we're doing is, in alignment with the comm delay that Comrade was talking about, is as we go out on these traverses, we're exploring. Imagine we're on Mars and we go for a walk, the first spacewalk. We've never been to this place before. We're getting all this footage back here on Earth, after a 10-minute delay in travel, and all the scientists on the ground are saying, whoa, we need to know about that, or he left that behind, or we got to go back. And so we're going on these traverses, and in mission control here, they're seeing the pictures 10 minutes after we go by them. And so we're practicing all of these techniques about how we handle that. And so we have an e-comm system down here where normally we would just talk, and someone gives us the answer. Imagine if we missed it, and we're like, say again, and it would take another 10 minutes for the information to get back to us. So we kind of have voicemail instead of regular radio communication. We get these voicemails that we can play over and over again if we need to. And we use text that we can read as required. And so that's what we're doing on these spacewalks. And it's kind of fun. And for us, they really are spacewalks. It's more, it's just like in space. We get up, two people go out, we suit them up, they get in their wetsuits, put these big bulky helmets on them, we make sure, and we do all the pressure checks on them, make sure they're working, and then we put them out the door and they go on a spacewalk. So really cool simulation for us.
And it can be quite a complex task because, for example, today it involved all four of us. Two of us were outside on a spacewalk. Jeremy was in constant radio communication from inside, going through the procedures, helping us out. And Hervé was flying this underwater robot with cameras that was helping to kind of get the situational awareness of what was going on outside. So it was a complex process that involved all four of us today.
And he mentioned the comm delay, and you're looking to note on that. It isn't just mission control delaying stuff to us. It's delayed to them as well. And everybody's in this play of this problem, so we need to figure out how to operate as a team with the comm delay, not just how the crew operate with the time delay.
Okay, great. I keep having to find the mute button. So since we're talking about all the hard work that you guys are doing, Jamie from Twitter asked, what do you guys do for exercise in the undersea habitat? And I'm kind of wondering, is what you just talked about, 4-hour EVA, sounds like a lot of exercise to me. So do you have any extra exercise that you guys are doing while you're in there?
No, we don't do anything else. I mean, it's already
it's a lot.
We were outside for 4 hours. We did yesterday for 2 hours. No, it's 4 hours. And even it will be more today for Andreas because we will go to a night dive together. So we'll have 2 dives today. No, that's enough. I mean, with that, we deserve good sleep and be ready for the next day.
Oh, I think was it Otter that did water aerobics today? Yeah, so Otter likes to do water aerobics in our wet port, which is where we go in and out of the water.
We're stuck inside a little more than these guys. We don't get to get out in the water as much, so we do have exercise bands. Ryan's a big push-up, chin-up guy, body exercise. So we do ourselves. We guys do a little bit, the techs do, because we're inside a little more.
Oh, that's great. Oh, okay, I didn't know you did that part too. I think last year one of the just-in-time training type of things they did involved building some exercise equipment, so they actually had to exercise while they were down there. We've also got another question from Carmen Austin that wanted to know that if it was up to you guys, how long would you stay down there?
Longer.
As long as they let us.
Yeah.
Till Otter votes us off the island.
Well, Ryan and I just did the Cousteau mission. We were down here for 31 days. We came out on the 32nd day. Although it wasn't a problem for either one of us, but I think we both agreed by the 32nd day we were ready to come out.
I bet there was quite a lot, but you missed like the sun.
That's a big one, and family and the dogs and kids and all, but family first, of course.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, for me, it's
shorter
kind
than
of
space trip. So.
bittersweet to think about it because it's probably a once in a lifetime opportunity to be down here, and unless you're Andy. And,
Just gotta fail it the first time, maybe you can do it again.
He's our veteran Aquanaut.
He's doing better this time, so we think he might pass.
But it's still touch and go. We're not sure.
I mean, there's definitely always that drive to get home and see family, and so it'll be fun to leave, but it'll be a little bit hard to leave knowing you're probably not going to get to come back and live down here again.
It's true. So we have a time for one more question, and this one comes from Ozzy on Google+, and he asks, besides the TDRS link to the internet, the space station has ham radio on board for off-hours hobby use and to communicate with school children on the ground. Is there a ham radio available on board NEEMO?
There is not a ham radio on board. We have sub to ship VHF. We have internet capability. Also, internet protocol phone. Is that correct?
Voice over IP.
Voice over IP. So it's a really good connectivity down here. It's just the ham radio, unfortunately, is not one of those things we'd. I don't know how getting one of those big, huge towers on top of the support buoy would really work out, especially in high seas. So we probably have to, it wouldn't work out so well.
And Skyping. Yay, you get to Skype with family maybe. Okay, well, we're sorry that we didn't get to everyone's questions, but we're hopeful that we'll get to answer them through the social media outlets if we didn't get to them. This concludes our first ever NEEMO Google Hangout. Thank you guys for doing it. It was great. It's my first Hangout as well. Thank you everyone for joining us and following the mission, and please continue and keep sending the questions and we'll get to you. And for more information about NEEMO, go to nasa.gov/mission_pages/NEEMO. You can get to all of our social media sites from there, or just follow us on Twitter. That's a really great way to keep in touch. And we hope to do this again. Thanks.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for joining us.